get to work.
Okay, let's go. This is a Let's Get to Work presentation in association with OpenSearch Con 23. I want to thank the creators of this opportunity for allowing me to be able to speak today under the third track, community inclusion. So let's jump right in. I think it's important for us to understand some of the terms that we hear used often, and community inclusion is one. And what that means is when a community respects the values and engages all of its citizens, regardless of their abilities, differences, or backgrounds. And as you can see from the video, it doesn't seem like that's a inclusive scenery, so to speak. It's also critical to understand the importance of how the community landscape has changed over the last decade or so. We do see a lot of displacement and individuals having challenges that seem to be outside of their abilities to shift direction. And it is of my opinion that as community members, everyone should be respected again, regardless of their circumstances or what place of life they're in. So again, this is under the community track. Community engagement is different from inclusion. Engagement is the process of working cooperatively with certain groups of people affiliated by special interest or similar situations to address issues that affect their well-being. Now, again, as you can see from the opening video, this doesn't look like a lot of those issues have been addressed for those individuals that are experiencing similar circumstances. Community awareness. It's the commonalities with members of a certain group that include situations that we get together and try and foster a sense of trust and belonging and create a safe place for these individuals that are having these experiences. And again, it doesn't look like any of that from the video that I started off with was really, really relevant. I had the opportunity of spending a week with a individual who owns a housing management company, or he's a housing provider. And I shadowed him for about a week, and it was a blessing because a lot of times we think that these housing providers or people that are in that industry are blood-sucking leeches that they only want to raise the rent. And I found out that they are, unfortunately, as a result of policies from within the community and policies at the government and federal levels, are policy death. And it was interesting to hear some of the things that he experiences as he's trying to create an environment that is inclusive, engaging, and creating awareness. Some of the fun facts that he was able to share with me is that over the last couple of years since the pandemic has ended, that rent has increased 35%. Also, in the region that I live, 45% of the individuals are renters. That translates to 1/3 of the rental stock being depleted. And as well, 30% of the private homeowners sold their properties because they couldn't get their properties paid because of the moratoriums and different things that was going on. And so it has ended and resulted in everywhere you go, it seems like the streets are littered with people. And it doesn't seem as if though things are going to change anytime soon. The disparity in quality of life is something that I've recently been able to experience and also understand from a professional standpoint because of my education. And what I know is that the cost of living is rising exponentially and the wages they're not at the same pace. And so eventually, you're going to have that crisis where people aren't going to be able to keep up with just the cost of living as time moves on. Commerce catches up with everything. So again, this is a presentation, and my responsibility is to hopefully bridge the gap between the haves and the have-nots in our communities by meaningful conversations like what I'm having today. It's interesting because when I got the response saying that my presentation had been accepted, I was like, what the heck? Open search. What is that? And so I remember getting drunk one night and thinking, hey, you know what? I want to be a conference speaker. And so I just started combing through the internet and filling out all of these call for presentations and presenters. And someone actually got the response and said, hey, you can come speak. And so I was petrified. I'm like, I think maybe whoever this person David is made a mistake. And so I was trying to figure out whether or not I wanted to call and says, hey, you know what? I think you may have sent this email to the wrong person. But then I remembered as I did my own inquiry, coming across Open Search and Googling some things. I even watched a few of the online meetings. I didn't know what anybody was talking about, but I wanted to try and familiarize myself with why I felt that I could add some value to what was going on. I mean, open search dashboards, security analytics, API, application program interfacing. None of it had any resonance with me. And when I came across the public availability that can be enhanced by anyone, that's when I realized what connection I had with the application that I had submitted. The essence of life isn't comic, it's tragic. There's nothing intrinsically funny about the terrible facts of human existence. Tragedy hits on the painful essence of life. And so there's this idea of equity, diversity, and inclusion. And when I come out of my home and I see individuals living these experiences and having these circumstances, I wonder, equity, diversity, and inclusion for whom? So again, we talked about the disparities in life. Now, homelessness is a very complex issue, and part of the difficulty is that there are different definitions of homelessness, making it critical that we prioritize interventions to improve the health and well-being of individuals that are living in different spaces, but may be experiencing the same overall outcome. The popular notion in the US is that education is an equalizer. I'm not so sure exactly if that is the case as well. When I came out of my associate's program, I couldn't get a job. I came out of my undergrad program, couldn't get a job. Came out of my master's program, couldn't get a job. So I just kept going because I figured at some particular point I would be able to complete the path and things would start to move in a different direction. But unfortunately, things haven't always worked out the way that it is that I want them to work out. So that challenge doesn't necessarily sit in a negative place with me, What I wonder is, how is this individual that's sleeping out in the parking lot in the open going to pull himself up by his strap boots when an individual that has similar experience, even though it may not be as sensational, hasn't been able to get very far from being back on the street? Like I said, don't cry for me. I know God has a plan. I'm having the opportunity to speak today. Anything can happen. But when you have someone that has hit the bottom, where is it that they're supposed to go? Community inclusion, community engagement, community awareness. I recently had the opportunity to do a research project. We're not talking Googling or an artificial intelligence circumstance where you just input some information and you get the results. I had to go through the rigor of creating an instrument, doing a methodology that would fit the outcome that I was looking or what I was hoping to legitimize. And it was a skills and job training program of individuals experiencing homelessness. Now, one of my subjects, Will, is a white male, 26 or 35, with some college education. He has no work certificates currently or at that time and is unemployed. Will's a pretty angry guy, with rightfully so. And he told me that he had just lost his brother to suicide and does not think race or class should matter and that everyone needs access to equal opportunity. And I think Will is right. One of the questions that I wanted him to answer for me is, why are there so many individuals that are taking or ingesting products that could potentially take their life? And he said that it's getting to the point to where his entire generation is being eradicated and nobody wants to be a part of this society that's his age because there's no payoff, no light at the end of the tunnel. He says he refuses to work until he's 75 just to be homeless. Again, we're talking about inclusion, engagement, and awareness. So I found this on the internet that I thought would be appropriate. I don't know if you guys know who Felipe Khan is, but this quote kind of fits the open search model. The power of open source is the power of the people. So I thought that that was something that was very suitable for today. Now, the objective of my presentation, this is why I'm here, as it relates to building the next generation of open source leaders, is to develop an open source database with a versatile API that enables developers to create solutions that facilitate easy access to homelessness service provider information, okay? So here's some of the key components and steps that I believe are going to be necessary in order for this to happen. So from a database structure, the design has to be a well-organized and extensible database structure that accommodates various service providers, includes fields for provider details, offered services, locations, contact information, operating hours, eligibility criteria, success stories, and user reviews. This API development should be a robust and well-documented API that allows developers to access provider information programmatically. The API should offer endpoints for querying providers, filtering results, retrieving specific details, and enabling geolocation features. It should be a user-friendly interface. I would like to see a creative and responsive, intuitive web interface optimized for cell phones so that you can implement search functionality, interactive maps, and user-friendly navigation for easy access to provider information. I would like to see it built in a secure portal for service providers to input and update their information. I think it's important to incorporate user authentication and validation mechanisms to ensure accurate and reliable data. I think for the service provider categories, that it should be based on their offerings, such as emergency shelters, transitional housing, mental health services, job training, addiction recovery programs, medical clinics, legal assistance, and more. Solution descriptions should include detailed descriptions of how each service provider addresses homelessness, outlining their methodology, success stories, and impact on individual lives. Of course, it should be an integration of geolocation services to enable users to find nearby service providers on the map, enhancing accessibility and efficiency in accessing assistance. I think through cooperation and integration that it should foster cooperation by providing developer resources, sample code, and documentation. And as an open source community, we should encourage the creation of complementary solutions that utilizes the API, such as mobile apps, chatbots, and data visualization tools. For security and privacy, I think a system would implement robust security measures to protect user data, prevent unauthorized access, and ensure compliance with privacy regulations. Promotion and adoption. The platform should be marketed to service providers, developers, and individuals experiencing homelessness through outreach efforts, social media campaigns, and community partnerships. Data insights and reporting. Provide analytics tools and service providers and stakeholders to monitor usage, track outcomes, and identify areas for improvement. By executing these steps, the creation of an open source homeless solutions database with the versatile API will empower developers, service providers, and individuals in the Seattle area to cooperate and leverage technology for innovative approaches to addressing homelessness and improving the lives of those in need. This next slide is of me in some of the ugliest attire that I've ever had to put on. But what that signifies is the doctorate's regalia from the City University of Seattle that's right over here on Wall. I've recently completed that program. And I'll tell you why this is so personal to me. When I graduated from the technical college, which is a 2-year school, I was sleeping in an abandoned house. I was in the human service program, and one of the things that we were training to become is frontline workers for individuals that are experiencing things that they need assistance for. And so as I'm going through the program, I'm not realizing, even though I'm in my 4th year of homelessness, that things are going to get a little bit worse as time moves on. And so when I completed the program, I took all of that information that I had and I thought to myself, you know what, I'm going to be able to apply this to my life and somehow accelerate where I'm at right now into my future. It didn't happen. The information was antiquated. A lot of the addresses and phone numbers were not updated. I would show up to buildings and you know what, it'd be a daycare. And I'm thinking to myself, like, how am I supposed to help myself if the safety nets that have been designed to create services for people like me aren't integrated? And so when I started my undergrad program, I was sleeping at the shelter downtown Tacoma, getting up, walking to school every day, never missed a class. Social science major, I'm thinking to myself, you know what, things are gonna change. Life's gonna get better. I'm getting my bachelor's degree and people are gonna come knocking on my door. Didn't happen. So I ended up having to go all the way down to North Carolina just to get a job working for Verizon, third-party company, doing first tier, breaking up fights and putting out fires. And on the side, I was working, cleaning the bank. I think it was $8 an hour, $1 over minimum wage at that time. This is 2016. I came back, I had to go back to the shelter. Okay, this is my second time at the shelter. I got a couple degrees now. They done told me, hey man, you go to school, you get you a good job, you live a good life. It ain't working for me right now. So they put me out of the shelter and now I'm sleeping on the streets. 10 days before I started my master's program, the same library that I took that picture at, I'm in a parking lot with a gray blanket that they give you at the shelter, sleeping on a book bag. Things are going to get better. Things are going to get better. I was able to finally secure permanent housing when I started my doctorate degree. That was beginning of 2019. And so I, again, was able to do a full narrative analysis, qualitative research project on an aspect of homelessness. The article has been approved. The manuscript will soon be copyrighted, and I'll get it published. And so as I was thinking on how I could contribute to the next generation of open search creators or developers, was pitching that idea. How would it be because if you think about it, with the millennials coming up, and I showed you some information on how the cost of living is exponentially going up quicker than people earning money. So at some particular point, as the individuals that are living the homeless experience currently start to phase out, you're going to have these new millennials coming in like Will, who were born with a cell phone in their hand. So if we are able to somehow create a system to where these individuals, because I don't think you'll ever be able to totally eradicate individuals living that circumstance. The poor will always be amongst us. But as technology starts to advance, I think we should move away from the file cabinet in all industries and not just some. So to sum this up, I would just like to say that I've had a great opportunity today. I've heard a lot of things, most of which I didn't understand. I'm very, very thankful to have the opportunity to be able to present this idea, and I just hope that somehow it resonates, because no one knows. We're all just a flat tire away from being on the street. Thank you.